for coming to the 2022 Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame induction ceremony and reception. We're thrilled to be back in person again, right? Isn't it great seeing everybody? And welcome our 20th class of inductees after this 2-year absence. As you've heard me say before, the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame is by far my favorite event of the year. It's the one time when we can all get together and celebrate bourbon's heroes and toast those gone by. There's usually a lot of laughter, and sometimes there are a few tears, as I expect today, as the unity and camaraderie of our signature industry shines through. So, real quick, if you are a member of the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, please stand so we can say thanks for everything you've done and continue to do for our industry. And before we get officially started, please join me in saying thanks for our sponsors today, who, with their support, has made this great event possible. Independent State Company, Blue and Company, Vendome Copper and Brass Works, Art Eatables, McBrayer Law Firm. I used to live in Winchester, so I'm proud to say LA1, Winchester Swampwater, I love it. Alpha Lit, Louisville, Elmwood Inn Fine Teas, and Michelis Event Company. So thank you to them for sponsoring today. So as y'all know, the KDA created the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame in 2001 to honor those who have made significant and transformational impacts on our historic industry and its stature, growth, and awareness. Now, even after 20 years, the COVID break did give us an opportunity to reflect on our Hall of Fame processes and traditions, which you'll see today. For instance, we flipped the script. So we're doing the program, the induction ceremony first, which will then follow with food and drinks and give you all the time more to mix and mingle and catch up, because it's been 2 years, right? Everybody wants to see everybody. So this is the reason we're doing this instead of luncheon today, first. And thank you to ISC, again, Brad Boswell and his team for sponsoring the reception. And we also changed the selection process for nominees. So each year, candidates are nominated by the KDA Board of Directors, our member distilleries, and then the board, in years past, would approve the nominees. But this year, for the first time ever, we created a blue ribbon committee of renowned Hall of Fame members to review and select the inductees. And these are names that you all recognize. I'm going to ask you to stand as I call your name. So the selection committee is made up of all living recipients of the Parker Beam Lifetime Achievement Award. The great Jimmy Russell, who could not be here with us today. Bill Samuels Jr., Max Shapiro, Evan Coolsbein, I don't know what the Coolsbein is there or not. Kevin Smith, acting as chair of the KDA Board of Directors. Chris Morris, who's governor of the Order of the Writ, Spirit of Kentucky Bourbon Society. And our dear friend and noted author, Dixie Hibbs. Dixie, where are you? There she is. Of Bardstown, who was my appointee. We also commissioned renowned glassblowing artist Brooke Forrest White Jr. of Flame Run in Louisville to craft unique and contemporary awards that incorporate bourbon-inspired motifs such as amber colors, oak, copper, and water. You can see them over here. They're stunning. And in fact, I've had a few Hall of Fame members say, hey, can I get one of those, as well. We hope Brooke could be here today, but he is finishing a massive 25-foot sculpture to his mentor, the late famed glass artist Stephen Raw Powell from Center College, which will be installed in a month. So we understand that he's busy, but these are absolutely phenomenal awards. And finally, for our guests who haven't been to the Hall of Fame before, or again, it's been a couple of years, here's the quick rundown for the next hire. While I am the MC and color commentator, we do have a tradition at Hall of Fame regarding formal introductions. So since we are a distilling family that values collaboration and friendship, each inductee is introduced by someone from outside of their distillery, and if possible, a current Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame member. So just in case you're wondering why somebody from Maker's Mark is introducing somebody from the Van Winkle family, it's because bourbon transcends brand lines. And at the KDA, that spirit of collaboration is the foundation of everything that we do. 142 years ago, a group of distillers met in Louisville and realized that they could accomplish a lot more by working together than standing apart. Now, I know we say that a lot, but let's pause a moment and think about what it means. These pioneer distillers set our industry on a path that we celebrate here today. I mean, take a look around you. Yeah, we're competitors, right? But very few industries have such a rich history of working together and celebrating each other's successes, offering assistance in times of need, and standing in solidarity in good times and bad. We have proven time and time again that we are stronger by working together. We are a family. I mean, hell, half of y'all are related, right? So it's this spirit of unity that is the hallmark of the KDA and Kentucky bourbon culture, and I think it deserves a round of applause. All right, we're going to get started with a special guest and a special presentation. So real quick, if you would, I'd like to welcome our partners in the Kentucky Bourbon Benefit to the stage. Fred Minnick, come on up, Fred. R.J. Sargent and Brian Hara with the Bourbon Crusaders. Chris Sabarowski of Westport Whiskey and Wine. And our hardworking KDA staff, Allison Bland, Sarah Barnes, and Marielle McElmurray. If y'all will come on up. We're very fortunate today, our special guest, to welcome Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who is the first governor to ever attend the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame event. Yes. Governor Beshear has long been one of our industry's strongest supporters, and we deeply thank him for his confidence in our industry and partnership in keeping Kentucky the one true authentic home for bourbon. Now, I think I'm safe to say that when he was elected in 2019, Governor Beshear had no idea the challenges that he would face in leading our beloved Commonwealth. A once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, the tornadoes that ravaged western Kentucky just before Christmas last year, and the catastrophic floods, obviously, that devastated eastern Kentucky. In fact, the Associated Press story last week called him Kentucky's consoler-in-chief, and he has done a tremendous job of leading us through all of these disasters. So y'all know that when the tornadoes hit western Kentucky and literally wiped cities off the map, the bourbon industry and the bourbon community responded in force. And we were able to raise, thanks to y'all's generosity, $3.4 million for Western Kentucky. And we said at the time, we hoped we would never have to do that again. But when the floods came to eastern Kentucky, this partnership that you see here today, without even being asked, immediately reassembled to facilitate the second Kentucky Bourbon Benefit Auction, this time to raise 100% of the proceeds for the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. And again, this event was made possible by KDA member and distillery donations from around the country, donations from private citizens like the Bourbon Crusaders from all around the world. We had 533 auction items, including private barrel picks, exclusive distillery experiences, and rare and unique bottles that haven't been available for years. So instead of my usual introduction to our wonderful friend, Governor Beshear, let's welcome him to the stage with a check. Okay. For $1.4 million to help our friends and neighbors in Eastern Kentucky today.
Well, normally I'm the one that gives out the checks. But let me say to the KDA, to everyone who donated, thank you. And just like the Tornado Relief Fund in Western Kentucky, the KDA is the single largest contributor to to the Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. Thank you. Start by saying how great it is to be in one of the most beautiful state parks in the entire country. Thank you to my old Kentucky home. I cannot think of a better way to celebrate National Bourbon Heritage Month than to be here with the Kentucky Distillers Association to help honor the folks who have guided the signature industry to greater and greater and greater heights, perhaps greater than any of us thought was imaginable. Bourbon is America's native spirit, and the industry is so important to Kentucky's economy and culture. You know, it may have been 30 years ago that another product was the introduction that people across the world might have had to Kentucky. Today, I think that's bourbon. One of the first ways that people get to know us, that people see the name Kentucky, and what drives people here, as you see in the hundreds of thousands, where they come down to taste your delicious products, but they also see everything else that Team Kentucky has to honor. As much as anything made by man or woman, bourbon represents Kentucky. Its warm welcome, its rich characters speak of our land and our people. Bourbon's rise in recent decades to the very top of the global spirits trade has benefited so many Kentucky families, and the momentum shows no sign of slowing. Our bourbon and spirits sector is a nearly $9 billion industry with an annual payroll of $1.23 billion and employs 22,500 people. Folks, that's 22,500 families that can support one another, that know how they're putting food on the table, that know how they're going to afford their prescription drugs, that can secure health care, and that can ultimately raise healthy, successful children. So to the industry, thank you for everything you do for our families. And I'll tell you, I'm pretty proud of what we've done together these last several years. Since the start of my administration, we've welcomed more than 50 spirits-related new location and expansion projects totaling over $1 billion of new investment and creating more than 900 full-time jobs for Kentuckians. Bourbon's growth worldwide has been amazing to witness. And it was one of the reasons I was proud to work with my friend, U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. When she came into office, the very first thing I was doing was calling her about getting rid of those tariffs. In fact, I called her a little too early. She hadn't picked up the first 3 or 4 times I called her. I think I told you this story. When she finally called me back, she said, "Andy, were you watching my hearing with the U.S. Senate?" I admitted, I said, "No, Gina, I wasn't." She said, "I know, because you were calling me during it." But she was confirmed. And I remember in that first conversation, it was the first conversation she had had about it, and then had conversations with so many of you here. And I remember 1 week before they got the job done, I went up there to make sure it was going right, and she sat down, looked across the table, and said, "Ending these bourbon tariffs is my #1 job as cabinet secretary." And she got the job done. And I still remember telling her that Kentucky produces 95% of the world's bourbon, but 100% of the bourbon worth drinking. And I still remember getting called for an article about a distillery setting up somewhere else and saying, "Oh, Kentucky doesn't have anything extra than we do to offer." And they said, "What do you have to say to that?" And I said, "You tell that person, good luck." Bourbon's also helping drive Kentucky's $8.9 billion tourism industry, the wildly popular Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And we thought it would be successful. But my goodness, the number of people it drives to Kentucky every single year to the Commonwealth to visit, and as you all are seeing more and more of them to stay, has helped define the bourbon experience in what is now a truly global fan base. In 2021, tourism development projects totaled $276 million in project investment and included new, expanded bourbon experiences. Kentucky's economy is on fire, and we have this industry, the KDA, and I gotta tell you, we have a lot of these Hall of Famers to thank for where we have come. And I want to thank them today for all their efforts to promote the signature industry. And to give you just some concept of how much energy there is, just think about this. I'm going to give you just a few of the projects that have been announced just this year alone. In February, Kentucky Cooperage announced they were investing $4.1 million, creating 20 new jobs. In March, Bardstown Bourbon Company, $28.7 million, 29 new jobs. In April, Augusta Distillery, $23 million, 14 new jobs. Casey Jones Distillery in April, $1.9 million, 15 new jobs. In June, Heaven Hill Distillery broke ground on a $135 million operation, creating 38 full-time jobs. This is also a return of their operations to Nelson County, an inspiring story that truly is an example of this amazing journey of bourbon. In June, Four Roses Bourbon, $23 million to expand in Bullitt County. Later in June, New Riff Distillery breaking ground on a $10 million warehouse in northern Kentucky. And right after this ceremony, I'm heading to western Kentucky to help cut the ribbon on the Dant family's amazing revival of Log Still Distillery. My goodness, the amount of investment, and it's only the middle of September, has been something truly special. My apologies, I know I've skipped over a few announcements. There's one really big one coming, and that's just how hot the bourbon is right now. It's a great problem to wonder if I left out anybody that's looking at me in the audience. But bourbon's contributions to Kentucky's economy and our people's pocketbooks are impressive all on their own. But one thing that I've seen since becoming governor is that the KDA and the people all across the industries aren't just engaged in commerce, you're engaged in our community. When COVID hit, and we didn't have enough PPE, we were the one state that didn't have to worry about hand sanitizer. Because the KDA had our back. The only problem is we all got thirsty starting early in the mornings. And when those tornadoes hit, the auction, truly incredible. When the flooding hit, it wasn't just the check you've seen today, it was providing water to communities that desperately needed it. I gotta tell you, every single time that we have faced a challenge these last 3 years, the Kentucky Distillers Association and the bourbon industry has stood right there, shoulder to shoulder with the people of Kentucky. You all aren't just an amazing industry, you're amazing citizens, you're amazing leaders, and you care about the people of Kentucky. And that's why we're going to continue to support this incredible industry and keep as much of it as possible in this Commonwealth. I can't tell you how much I appreciated the bourbon auction and what it did for the people of Kentucky. You think about the fact that it raised almost $4.5 million that actually went in to a $16 million pledge that's rebuilding 300 new homes in western Kentucky, and about 50 of them are already under construction. And I remember being told that a bottle signed by Brittany and me went for almost $700. I didn't think that my signature was worth that much, given that I have to sign a lot of things. But then there were 3 people bidding on it. And then 2 others decided to match the winning bid to get their own bottle. They ended up raising over $2,000 for people in need. So I am so honored to be with you here today to recognize those going in to the Hall of Fame. But I'm also really honored to accept this $1.4 million check. To those that haven't been able to see Eastern Kentucky, it is a flooding disaster unlike anything that the country, I believe, has ever seen. Homes completely wiped out. Now 40 people, children of God, lost, and thousands of others that truly only escaped with the clothes on their back. But just as the level of destructiveness has been unprecedented, so has been the response. First, it was our National Guard, by far the best National Guard in this country, along with other first responders, making 1,400 rescues. I'm not sure the world's ever seen 1,400 individuals saved in just over a day and a half. But then it was the generosity of folks like you, people opening their hearts and their homes to one another to help make sure we can get people back on their feet and to make sure that we're not pushed backwards, that we continue to march forwards. And as we think about what we're having to do here in the Commonwealth right now, it's really two things. It's something to pick our brothers and sisters in the East and the West up that have been knocked down. But it's also to make sure that we are not pushed back 1 inch from creating the bright future that our children and grandchildren deserve. See, Bourbon has been a part of something these last couple years that is as exciting as anything I've ever seen. You know, last year we broke every economic development record on the books in terms of private investment and in terms of new jobs. And we're going to have the second best year in our history this year. We've become the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America in the last year alone, and have become the agriculture technology capital of the U.S. For the first time in my lifetime, the biggest companies on planet Earth are picking us, are picking you for the biggest projects in the history of those companies. This is our time as a state where we can leapfrog 10 other states' economies. We can become a top 10 state economy. And it's how we realize that collective dream of every parent and grandparent that our kids will never have to leave the Commonwealth if they don't want to. This is being draped in the flag. Because we make sure every opportunity is right here for them. We're going to hear more about these incredible leaders today, but I'd like to finally highlight just one of today's recipients, Stephen Thompson. Sadly, Stephen passed away last year, and I know some of his family is here with us today. He's the founder and president of Kentucky Artisan Distillery, former president of Brown-Forman Distilleries, and a true pioneer in the craft bourbon space. I'm told he was also a rock of stability and calm for a lot of folks in the industry during the worst days of the COVID pandemic. On regular update calls, Stephen would encourage everybody to follow the science and do what was right, even when it's tough. And I know how hard that can be when people are scared. It's leaders like Stephen who make this industry so much more than a business. So I know a little bit later, everybody will be able to raise a glass to Stephen's memory and to today's other Bourbon Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you all for your work. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you for being a part of something really special going on in Kentucky right now. God bless you. God bless our Commonwealth. And today we also have the official proclamation for Bourbon Heritage Month that I'm happy to present to my friend Eric.
Thank you very much. All right. Wonderful.
Weep no more, my lady. Oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home.